Hello YouTube, you join me again for one of my MX-5 tutorials. Today we're at the Jefferson circuit version of Summit Point. So as normal, I'll let the video play for the first lap with no commentary, and then we'll go turn by turn after that. Alright, that was a lap without a commentary or anything, so we'll go back, do it again, but this time we'll slow it down, go turn by turn, and I'll explain what's going through my mind as it happens. So here in turn 1, this whole track doesn't have any braking markers, so I like to use the shadows here. Just keep in mind that they change with the weather, so they're not always constant. And then in terms of actual braking, you can see that I'm at 100% braking, and then I bleed it off. For the turn-in, it's very easy to turn in too early for this turn. You're going to want to turn in relatively late, and don't do an early apex, don't do a late apex. Do an apex right at the definition of what an apex is, right in the center of the turn. That seems to be the fastest way. Also keep off the curbs there. So watch how late I turn in here. It would be very easy to turn in right here and go straight for the apex, but I stay out a little wider just to carry more speed through the turn. Apex right at the apex, track out, right in the middle of the road seems to be pretty good to set you up for these next S's. This left S is easy, flat, nothing to talk about there. On the right-hander, you can go over the curb and slightly into the grass, as I do here, or you can avoid the curb completely. It's more consistent and easier to just avoid the curb, but it's very, very slightly faster to actually go over the curb. It's just more risk involved, so if you feel comfortable going over the curb, go for it, but also keep in mind you get a 1x very easily there, so just keep that in mind. And through that turn, no braking is required or anything like that, just a small lift, and then back to power again. In this instance, I went back to power a little earlier than normal just because the car was getting unsettled, and it may seem a little bit counterintuitive, but in this turn, this track, if you go back to throttle a little bit, it'll actually help settle the car back out again. So that's why I did that, like 50% throttle right here, right there, and then went back to full throttle. This next left-hander is a pretty tricky turn. It's sort of like a double apex. Like to start as far in the middle of the road as possible, but obviously it's tough because you're coming out of here. The car wants to track out straight, but if you keep it to these dash lines here, keep like the right-hand wheels on that dash line, it'll set you up for pretty good entry here. Other than that, you brake pretty hard and then let it coast just to keep the momentum up, and stay off the curb on here, otherwise it's going to be impossible to get the power down. So you can see how long I let it coast through there after I was off of the brakes, and stay off the curb. You can see I'm very, very close to the curb there on the first apex here, but I would not recommend actually going up onto that curb, seeing as how it's so big, so tall. It upsets the car a lot. the second apex. It's just on the exit here. It's very, very easy to get to. No big deal there. This left-hander is a pretty fast turn, but you actually have to brake a lot for it, more than you might think. So I think I actually went to 100% braking here. Yeah, just very, very quickly. 100% braking. And I could have been farther to the right-hand side of the track here, maybe another foot. And that's not the end of the world. But obviously just try to use up all the track like normal. And here, where you're aiming for, I don't know if you can see, right here is a high point in the curb, then there's a low point, and then another high point. What you're trying to go for is hit this low point here, because if you hit this the high point of the curb here, it's going to upset the car quite a bit. And in this lap I actually hit that high point by mistake, so you can see how much that it upsets the car. So that's obviously not ideal. It's pretty hard to hit that point, but that's what you're aiming for anyway. That's what I was aiming for, but I just turned in slightly too early, so I hit this high point here. Like 4 feet ahead is where you're aiming for, right here. Right where the car is right now is where you want to apex in an ideal situation. And this turn is downhill, so you're going to carry more speed than you think, and you're going to need more braking than required just because it is downhill. So keep that in mind when you're going through this turn. It's natural for the car to understeer a lot through there too, so be careful going out into the grass here. Even just putting half wheel into the grass will send the car swapping ends on you really quickly. I tend to stay to the right of the track here on the straight just because I cut this turn quite a bit, if you can call it a turn. You can go over this curb even though it's quite big. You can go over it as far as you want until you get a 1X. I like to put 2 wheels over it, and the car seems perfectly happy to do that, so why not? So just run over this curb here, and then that'll set you up for a nice entry into this next left-hander. This is a double apex decreasing radius left-hand turn, so it's quite tricky, and you can gain or lose a bunch of time here. So I'll spend quite a bit of time going through this turn. The first apex is going to be right around here just before the shadow line, but stay off of the actual curb if you can. And as you saw in the beginning of the video, I stayed out very wide to get a good entry onto the straight for a hot lap, and I would probably do that in the race too, stay out wide most of the time. But on a hot lap, it's a little bit faster if you keep it tight, carry more speed through this middle part of the turn, and then have a worse exit, but the exit's not going to matter because the finish line is right next to the exit of the turn. So in a race, stay wide, but if you're on a qualifying lap, I would keep it in the left-hand lane here, if you can. On the exit, you can use the pit entry, the pavement there. Just be careful not to use too much of this dirt, and you'll get a 1X through there. So I'm going to go back and go through the slow motion so I can kind of describe what's going through my mind. So here you brake pretty hard, go for this first apex, downshift into 4th gear. Get off the brakes, not all the way, but almost all the way. And then downshift down into 2nd. And then you can actually get fully off the brakes, let the compression of the engine slow you down. And at this point you can feel whether you're going to be a little bit too slow or too fast. So that's why I gave it the little blip there before I went to full throttle. I felt like I was a little bit too slow. The way you can feel that is if the car is understeering, then you're probably too fast or pretty good. If the car isn't understeering at all, then you're probably a little bit too slow. You can add a little bit of throttle and get away with it. So I'll show you that full speed in the cockpit, and that'll complete the lap at Summit Point Jefferson. Not too complex, just keep in mind that you want to keep the momentum up as much as possible at this track. And that is a lap of Jefferson Circuit at Summit Point. Hope this helped. Thanks for watching.